Hello everyone and welcome to the Melbourne Traditionalists episode 79. I'm Mark Moncrief from Upon Hope and I have with me today David Hiscock from XYZ. How are you, David?
Very good, Mark. Always a pleasure to be here.
Now, you wrote an article that a lot of people are calling,
It was poorly labelled satire.
it was poorly labelled satire, and I must say it took me in for about a paragraph or two, and then I went back up and had a look at it. I had to look to see whether it was labelled as satire, which it was. And the article is ABC opens Gab account, gets banned for anti-white hatred, and it's a brilliant headline, and it's a really good article, and it fooled me because, hey, this is clown world, and that's everything in it is entirely possible.
Yes. Well, that's the way that I write the satire, and that's the reason why I write the satire. It's because what is going on in clown world is insane, and so if you make things up which are likely to happen, then it's at least for the first couple of paragraphs, and I deliberately write it that way, it's difficult to discern whether it's real or not. And so that's the way that we actually shine the light on the truth, because when the media, when the lying press presents the news, the so-called news, they're lying to you as they're telling you what's actually going on. So what we're doing here is we're deliberately telling lies, but using it to tell the truth. And we're quite open about the fact that it's lies, because you can tell it, like, after you read it through, it's like, okay, they're just making this stuff up, but they're actually revealing the truth. So it's going about it the opposite way. If we didn't live in an insane world, then it would just be a joke and it wouldn't be that relevant.
Well, exactly. And I noticed some of the comments down the bottom, people were making exactly the same comment. Hold on, was this satire? I had to check out. Can't tell if real or satire. That was Maddie.
I think they're sort of being a little bit ironic there, like they're used to it. But I think a few people were. I used to think it was just the Facebook boomers and normies who would get taken in, because like we would put satire up on Facebook and like you would have entire comments threads in groups where people are just raging about it, and people would have to tell them, look, it's satire, and then
I've had the same thing with Babylon Bee articles.
Oh yes,
where people will say, oh, this is outrageous, and it's like, oh, actually it's satire.
And they work in exactly the same way, and I've been really impressed with them, because I think they have a really good way of getting to the truth.
Absolutely. What about the last comment? Gold.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good comment.
I'm pretty stoked with
capitals.
I'm pretty stoked with it. So let's go over what I wrote in there. So basically, several days ago, last week.
Last Thursday.
Last Thursday, Facebook banned all news, all Australian news from being published on Facebook.
Yes.
Now, the reason they did that was because, for some bizarre reason, the Australian mainstream media believe that they should get paid for people sharing their stuff on what is essentially a free platform. They could use Facebook for free if they really wanted to. So they're saying that, well, that's our content on there, we should get paid for that content. But the fact is, Facebook, what's the word? It expands, it amplifies their content. It's a way of getting their content to a wider audience.
Disseminates.
Yes. And Facebook deliberately censors their competition. Plus, the last 10 years has been a period in which the population across the world has been conditioned to use social media and to get the news from social media. So you see all these worry articles coming up in the mainstream media worrying about the fact that most people get their news off Facebook, and that could open them up to getting views from fake news and sharing their opinions. But the fact is, as I just said, Facebook censors so-called fake news and amplifies the approved news. So what they've got is a really good deal going on, and they should have kept their mouths shut. Instead, they got greedy and said, "Oh, we deserve to get paid for having our news amplified." And so Facebook have just said, "Well, stuff you, you can't do it." And so now that the butthurt has been beautiful, because you've got these people who just don't get it, complaining that Facebook are censoring them, when again, they've spent the last few years cheering the censorship of the right wing.
Yeah, and there's the great irony is that if you don't agree with the mainstream, you get censored.
Yes.
And now the mainstream has been censored.
Yes.
And now they're complaining.
Yes.
And they can't see the irony. They can't see that they set themselves up here at all.
Yes. And it's
which
beautiful.
is something which is very revealing about the people that we're fighting against. Is they've got this massive blind spot, not just about censorship, but about most things. Yeah. Now, I actually wrote an article about this, and I take a different view. And
I have another view which I haven't written about yet. I'm interested in yours. And
well, maybe you should tell me yours, and if it's good, I won't put this to air, and I can write it.
No, let's hear you. Yeah? Let's see. I just wanted to make it clear.
I'm going for a career in mainstream journalism. My take is that in the old days it was really hard to make money on the internet, and now they've actually worked out how to make money.
Yes.
So in the past, companies were like, well, what does it matter if our content is being taken? No one's making any money off it. We can't make money off it. No one can make money off it. It's really value neutral. But now that Facebook has worked out how to make money, well, why are we doing the hard work and they're getting the profits?
Well, that's the excuse that they're using.
Well, I think it's a real excuse.
Oh, I think it's bullshit.
No, I accept it as real.
I think it's bullshit. They get advertising on their sites.
Yeah, but they don't get the money for
it. Like, people pay to have advertisements placed on the mainstream media. The reason they're not making as much money is because their readership is dwindling. So
yeah, because people are getting it for free.
But people pay with paywalls and that sort of stuff. People can read their news for free, but companies who want to advertise on the mainstream media pay the mainstream media to advertise their stuff on the mainstream media. So of course they're making money. And so if their stuff is getting amplified via Facebook, that improves their product. That increases the reach of their product, which makes them more valuable, which means that they can attract more advertisers.
No, what it's doing is it's basically saying, here's our Herald Sun that you can pay for, or right next to it, here's our Herald Sun that you can get for free. Which one are you going to take?
You can't get past a paywall just by using Facebook. Like what you just said doesn't make sense. They have their web page, which you have to get past a paywall to get through to.
Yes.
And so
which Facebook is doing. Facebook is doing it, not you or I.
Yes, but they use Facebook to increase the reach.
No,
of
but
that
they
page.
don't do it. Facebook does it. So Facebook is taking somebody else's content, putting it out there, and then making money off the revenue off the advertisement from.
They have a Facebook web page where they put up their articles. People go to that Facebook web page and they click on the articles and they go through to the Herald Sun web page.
But that would mean that you'd have to have a subscription to the Herald Sun.
Yes. That's why I'm saying their excuse is rubbish. That's why I'm saying they have no case whatsoever. And this whole farce has been caused by a non-argument. It's simple greed. They're using.
Well, I agree, it is greed, but exactly who's being greedy is the issue.
Well, they're both greedy.
All right, we can definitely agree on that one.
Yeah.
And really, we're arguing about which evil man is more evil.
Yeah. As I think I said in my lead-up article to this, all I want to do is bring along jelly and popcorn, and the jelly is for them and the popcorn is for me.
Yeah, don't get mixed up. On the article that you wrote, there's a lot of articles that are from the ABC.
Yeah, which I think is one of the reasons why people found it a bit confusing.
Yeah,
these are genuine screenshots.
But they're all really appalling.
Oh, they're shocking.
You know, is coffee racist?
Yeah.
How drinking coffee perpetuates white supremacy.
Yes.
You know, and apparently we pay for this.
Yeah, this is government-funded degeneracy propaganda.
Yeah.
And anti-white.
Sorry, I'd like to correct
government-funded.
you.
Yes.
It's taxpayer-funded.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's awful.
Stormies slams William Shakespeare and calls him a bad influence on kids. The grime superstar. Grime? It's just bizarre.
Yeah, he's a rapper.
Yeah. Wow, it's just so bizarre. Now, you told me that you actually got this from a particular place. These headlines.
Yes, it was from a Telegram channel called F the ABC.
Yep.
I've censored the name of that. It's well worth checking out on Telegram. It's a great website. On XYZ, what I'm trying to do at the moment is not react to the mainstream media narrative. To basically, we talk about current events, but we create our own narrative, and the idea is that the establishment reacts to us.
Yeah.
So if you, which I know is sort of goes against the original idea and even the name of the XYZ, but if you want to go to a place where you get an idea of just like how awful the ABC is, go to F the ABC on Telegram.
Yeah.
It's well worth
well,
checking
of course, the XYZ has evolved.
Yeah.
Quite a lot over. Is it 4 years? 5 years?
5 years. This will be our 6th year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to change the subject.
Oh, can I talk about
my?
So this is where this is the dark side of
of
the latest fiasco.
Yeah.
This is the article I haven't read yet, basically.
Written,
yes, yeah. I've read it in my mind. So there is an excellent interview with a former intelligence operator, a guy who claims he was an intelligence operator called Jack Decker. He was from one of the intelligence agencies, and a bunch of him and other guys who are essentially patriots.
Yep.
War gamed what would happen after the US election.
Yep.
And their prediction is for civil war.
Yep.
And so, to cut a long story short, they get to what happens if the Biden administration gets in. So two of the things that they've predicted, one of them is definitely coming in. Blind Freddy could have predicted this. They're going after the guns.
Yep.
Second one is that they will provoke or false flag an international conflict or crisis in order to distract patriots from the fact that they've just had an election stolen from them. The third one, the really important one, is this idea that they will shut down the internet and then use that black period as a chance to disappear what they call right-wing influences. And they have a specific number of people who they think they can get rid of. It's in the low thousands, basically, without causing too much of a stir. So I was thinking about what's happened over the last few days in Australia, and this is where I put my tinfoil hat on. You don't need to shut down the whole internet.
Yeah.
You just need to shut down the main avenues of reaching a large audience.
Yep.
So, yes, they've shut down mainstream media news in Australia, but they've also shut down independent news.
Yeah.
I've seen on Twitter people, independent media people who haven't yet been banned from Facebook are complaining about Facebook now.
All right.
Yeah. So
I must say I have not noticed any change on Facebook.
Right. Okay. Are you still able to share Melbourne Traditionalists?
I don't usually put Melbourne Traditional stuff on Facebook.
Okay. It'd be worth checking out because it might be banned.
Yeah.
Facebook is one of the main avenues for sharing to a wide audience.
Yeah.
If they were to, like they have with the coronavirus and lockdown here in Victoria, if they were to use Australia as a test case for disappearing a few people, they have the perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is a bit of a black pill, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's a black pill wrapped in tin foil, but it's like we're talking about people who they've either unleashed a biological weapon on us or they've faked an entire coronavirus lockdown around the world. Yeah. So these people are all in.
You just mentioned the topic that I can't remember a time when we didn't talk about it.
Well, it is the defining story of our era. I guess it's a good segue onto the next.
Into the next one. Tell me about the Australian Open.
Okay, so Friday a week ago, as the lockdown was announced here in Victoria, there was
we had a 5 day lockdown, which was announced 5 hours before it was supposed to happen.
Yes. Yeah. Notice interestingly that the time frame for announcing lockdowns has come down, and the level at which the lockdown jumps has increased. Like they just went straight to level 4. Yeah. So there was a massive protest which made its way from the CBD down to Melbourne Park. It was huge.
Yep.
Yeah. And then on the weekend there were huge rallies all around Australia. And Pete Evans spoke at one of them. We can talk about him later if we want.
Talk about it.
But just briefly, like I saw a couple of minutes worth of his speech.
Yep.
Basically, I've been impressed by Pete Evans. In his speech, he was barefoot and seemed quite humble. For somebody who posts a lot of Q stuff, and a main criticism of Q is that it encourages people to sit on their backside expecting other people to take care of things. He said to people, nobody's coming to save you, only you can save you.
Ain't that true?
Yeah. It was great. And I get the impression it's a guy who doesn't want to get into politics, but he's realizing, okay, I have a big following, I'll try to do something about it. He's a bit normy, but I like him, basically. Big protests across Australia. And then last night, after the final had been concluded, Novak Djokovic destroyed Daniil Medvedev. The person running Virgin Australia, she got up and she gave this speech where she was pretending to empathise with the proles.
And you've got it on your YouTube channel, haven't you?
Yes, on the YouTube channel, and
I
wrote up a summary of it this morning as well.
Yeah.
So she basically said, I know it's been a difficult 12 months, but now with the introduction of the vaccine and the government's rolling it out across the world, we can look forward to the future with confidence.
Yep.
Boos. It was amazing. The crowd booed her. And then you could see the panic.
Because it was on the word vaccine.
Oh, yes. Then
once the word vaccine was said, that's when people started to boo.
That's right. And then you could see the panic in her face because she knows as part of her speech she's got to thank the Daniel Andrews government. So she just went in and did it. She said, we'd like to thank the Victorian government without whom this event could not have taken place. Again, more boos.
And it was even more intense.
Yes. Later on in the speech, you don't see it in the video, but she told the crowd that they were very opinionated. She was trying to get back on side with them and make sort of jokes with them. And then the corporate fat cat behind her, got up and looked very stern. He looked like he was trying to tell the crowd off. What we see here is an alliance between globalist corporations and globalist government. They're both on the same side, whether you want to call them globalists, liberals, whatever. They're all on the same side. They're all against the people.
That's exactly right. Now, we were also talking about the protests, which you mentioned, which was on Saturday. And there were thousands of people there.
Yes.
And they were held in every major city in Australia. In Melbourne, of course, the police reacted as they have for all of these. They went right overboard.
Yes. You were making an excellent point before that once an organisation learns something.
The Victoria Police, they when the very first UPL rally was held in Melbourne back in 2015, the police were overwhelmed, right? And they called police from everywhere to bring the situation under control. And then they decided, hey, we're not going to be caught out like that again. So then they actually started to equip properly and train properly for crowd control and riot control and so forth. And so they learnt a way of doing things. And now that they've learnt that tactic, they just keep doing it, even when it's inappropriate. And so every time there's a protest, they overreact to it, particularly if it's not a left-wing protest.
Absolutely.
You know, the left-wing protests, they just stand down. They just let them march through.
They kneel.
They even kneel. Didn't they? But that's not the same with anybody else. Anyone who's even vaguely on the right. And of course, in Victoria, we've had a Labor government for a long time, and that means that a lot of the senior officers in Victoria Police, they know what side their bread's buttered on, so they look after the what the Victorian government wants to see, and they want to see Black Lives Matter and Invasion Day protests, and they don't want to see anyone like us.
Yeah, they know who gives them the donuts.
Exactly.
Yeah. We've seen a real militarisation of the Victorian police over the last 5 years. I mocked it several months ago with I wrote a piece about something about when the riot squad stormed the Victoria Market.
That was ridiculous, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I gave it a ridiculous headline, something about the killer tomatoes and the Battle of Victoria Market or the Battle of the Fruit Stalls or something like that. Yeah, it was insane, and it deserved a ridiculous piece. Yeah, but yeah, the state government has militarised the police.
Massively.
Yeah, and like if you want to look at what a police state looks like, look at Victoria now.
Yeah. I remember even probably 10 years ago, I reckon it was about 2010, I saw this young police officer, and he could only have been a year or two out of the academy, you know, if he joined at 18, you know, he was very young. And he was walking through North Lane Shopping Centre, probably going to buy lunch, and you know, he had his uniform on, all right, fair enough. He's got his utility belt, as they do, and on that belt he's got his gun, and he's got his pepper spray, and he's got a bulletproof or knife-proof vest on.
Wow.
And it's like, this is just normal police attire.
Yes.
And when you think about it, you think, my first thought was, policing can't be this dangerous, you know? I mean, people say, police get killed and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but people in lots of professions get killed. You know, they're going about their everyday business and bang, something bad happens, you know, and sometimes those people are police.
Yes.
But instead, effectively, the whole of society has become the enemy of the police.
Yes.
And that's what happens when the police are militarised.
Yes. There are great memes that you'll see of police, even from the 70s compared to now.
And it's amazing. You look at those photos and you're like, are those people really police?
Yeah.
Because they don't have that militarised look, and they don't seem like they're police officers.
Yeah. And we look at what's changed, and it's simple. We had a far more homogenous society. And,
yeah, absolutely.
Homogeneous. The word homogeneous is a dog whistle for white.
Yes.
Anglo.
Yeah.
We actually had an Australian society, and police.
Our people were our people.
Exactly. Yeah, our police were our people.
That's right.
Yeah, they were people whom we had deputised just to do the stuff, so we don't have to go around in vigilante gangs enforcing the law ourselves. It was just more convenient.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's what's changed, and it's been pointed out that with the third worldisation of Australia.
Yes.
We're getting a combination, and this is across the West, we're getting a combination of the worst of the West of liberalism, of globalism, and the worst of the third world. So you go to third world countries, even developing second world countries, you have militarized police on key corners in groups. Sometimes there'll be an armoured personnel carrier there as well, and they've got big guns basically. And you've just got the chaos, you've just got life is dirtier. And low trust. And then you combine that with the worst of what the so-called modern world is giving us. It's basically the degeneracy and the elevation of females across the world. They're pushing that everywhere. Like you see in Japan, for example, how there was that big stink with their Olympic committee.
The head of the Olympic committee said, you can't go to meetings with women because they just won't stop talking.
Where's the lie?
It's true. We've all met women, it's
we've all had to work with women. It's spot on. They're really pushing the so-called LGBT agenda in Africa.
Well, that's right. President Biden, or should that be Resident Biden?
Yes.
Said that that they may bring in sanctions against Nigeria because Nigeria it's a criminal offence to be a homosexual in Nigeria.
Sounds like they need some democracy. They're just going to have to carpet bomb Lagos.
Well, maybe we'll come to that.
So it's a combination of the worst of all worlds, and we're just seeing this this leveling across the globe. They seem to have decided that they've done enough work on the West, and now it's time to spread to the rest of the world.
But I also seem to think that they're finding that it's much harder to make advances in the West now. So they're looking for some easy victories in the third world. Basically going there and saying, "Hey, change this. It won't really affect anything." A couple of decades ago that might have worked, but now they can look at the West and say, "Hey, it really has affected things." But of course, people in the third world are infected with this stuff as well. And if you're a Nigerian in the middle class, where did you get your education? Did you get it in the West, or did you get it at a Western school in Nigeria? So you're probably, and you're exposed to the same media that you and I are. Maybe it is worthwhile for the Liberals to push this. Maybe they will actually achieve some success.
Well, they'll achieve it. Amongst those that they've been managed to so-called educate.
That's right.
The lower classes of both the West and in the third world have a very finely attuned BS meter.
Although I must say that even in Australia, when I was growing up, our BS meter was really high.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
And now it's... I don't even know if we have one anymore.
I think we do. It's just that... it doesn't get a voice. Basically, the university-educated elite have taken over all of the media. And then they've brought in a whole bunch of new foreign invaders. And so, proportion-wise, we're not as strong as we were 20 or 30 years ago. And then we're not able to get the voice... into the mainstream media as much as we could. So I think it's there. It's why I loved what happened at the Australian Open, because
I must say it's a very encouraging sign. Isn't it?
I think though that they're either going to have no crowds on a regular basis, because people say over in England they're booing the soccer players kneeling at the start of games. So they'll either have no crowds, they'll ring the crowds with police, or they'll just ban live TV, because they can't have this opposition to the narrative in real time going on.
And there's the bizarre thing, because liberalism has always said people secretly long to be a liberal, and they just haven't heard the right argument. And now that's starting to run out. You can't really say people in the West haven't heard the liberal argument.
That chimes in with that meme of It's that the footage from the 50s or 60s when they enforced desegregation of the universities.
Yep.
And you had the police officers with rifles marching behind the white guys protesting against the Africans being brought into the universities. And the line is multiculturalism, so popular it needs to be enforced at the barrel of a gun, something along those lines.
Absolutely, and that's they think that that's just a temporary thing and they can force it through, but it's proving that that's not the case. Because in the end, it would be better if the world worked the way they said, but it doesn't. And so no matter what they say, it's not going to work out the way that they want.
At the end of the day, they're going to have to use force.
Yeah. Now, I did want to ask you about... Oh, isn't this embarrassing? Here we are live, and I can't think of what I was going to ask you.
Oh, we're just going to have to ban live podcasting, yeah.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, what do you think would be the makeup of the crowd at the Australian Open?
Oh, some people are pointing out that there were a lot of Serbians there.
All right.
And some people are suggesting that the people doing the booing was the Serbians.
Yep.
Which could make sense.
Yep.
Given that our own Anglo stock does seem to be quite cucked.
Yep.
I don't like the corollary of that argument, which is that we need more non-Anglos in Australia, because that makes white nationalism still a form of white genocide.
Yeah.
So my solution is always to uncuck the Anglos as well. Yeah. But having seen the makeup of people at the protests, again, it seems overwhelmingly white.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to go with the idea that yes, it was overwhelmingly white people, and I like to hope that my own ethnic group of white people were doing a lot of booing. Somebody else has pointed out, though, that usually at these events there are a lot of corporates.
Mm-hmm.
So they would usually be more receptive to a pro-vaccine message.
Yep.
But this one, because of just all the craziness that's gone on, there were actually regular people there. So it was more like a preliminary final crowd compared to an AFL Grand Final crowd.
Yeah.
It was actually the regular people out there.
Well, when the lockdown happened, the tennis continued, but without fans.
Yeah.
And so, the fans were directly impacted in a major way.
Yes.
By the lockdown.
Yes.
So, I think that would also contribute to their, hey, hold on, what's going on here?
Absolutely. And people trying to discredit the fans who booed have been saying, oh, how ironic, it's people attending the Australian Open booing the people who put on the Australian Open.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, it's people who are directly affected by the lockdowns booing the people who are saying, isn't it great that we've been able to have this event which caused the lockdowns?
Yeah, exactly. Because, there are still 40,000 Australians who can't get into Australia, but of course they flew in all these tennis officials and tennis players for the Australian Open and gave them special dispensation.
Yes.
Because apparently this disease is so deadly that you can just say yes, no.
Yeah.
I think we'll end it there.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
So many things, so many other things, so many other tangents are going off in my mind right now. We could talk for 5 hours, but we'll leave it there. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. And if you want to check out David Hiscock, you can go to XYZ, and we'll put a link down below. And if you want to check more of my thoughts out, you can go to Upon Hope, and there'll be a link in the description box below as well. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you again next week. Bye-bye, everyone.